A quick introduction to Jack. So Jack has decades of experience planning and delivering events. I know, I do the same when I talk about how many years. It's like delivering events all over the world. He's a trusted professional who lives and breathes events. Director of Saward. Jack, how do you say your surname properly?
As long as you say it, politely, I don't mind. Saward Marketing and Events is how.
Saward. That's it. Yes, Saward Marketing Events, and has coined the term professional cuddle. He has. Yeah, he gives great. He's my virtual cuddle person. He calls me regularly to make sure I'm doing all right. And like I was saying, it's so valuable. He aims to provide all of his customers with comfort and reassurance. Jack is co-host of the Inspiring Events Insights podcast and a proud dad of 3 girls. You brave man. Challenging him to find the perfect work-life balance. In this session, Jack's going to be sharing his first-hand experience of how businesses have had to explore with the ever-changing markets we live and work in. Jack will talk about how his non-stop hustle mentality affected his mental health, share the challenges adapting his working routine to the current climate, what that was for him and his family, as well as give insights into the lessons he's learned for achieving a healthy work-life balance. And then we'll do some Q&A. So over to you, Jack.
And I would say still learning.
Still learning.
Yeah,
Never stop learning.
Never stop learning. We always have to keep evaluating whether we've got the balance right. And we all make mistakes along the way, and we all need to keep being reminded about just taking a step back from the situation and reevaluating. So yeah, I haven't got all the answers. I don't declare to have all the answers. I'm still work in progress, and I think we all are always still work in progress. So what I have got for you is I've got a short presentation that I thought I would share with people. It's far better than looking at my face all the time. I will open that up. It's only a short one, but I will talk to the slides rather than you having to look at my face. So a little bit probably about me to begin with then. I was born into events. I'm a second generation of eventer. My father was in events for a number of years prior to me. However, I didn't study events at university. As the photo can show by its poor quality, there was no such thing as event management when I was at university. So I actually studied sports development. It was a keen interest of mine. A little subnote, I was part of a Future Leaders government-backed delegation to China that really gave me the bug for the travel and work aspect of my future career. I haven't always worked in events. I actually took the decision not to jump straight into events when I finished university. I worked in colleges, I worked in youth offending, and that was so valuable for me in terms of my education and what I brought back into the events industry from working in that sector. But it was also good for me in terms of understanding myself. I worked with a number of teams there, including CAMS, the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Service, social care, the police, all different services that I began to get better in terms of my communication skills, get better at understanding people, about understanding how changes in body language you can read a situation better. I've got to say, I'm probably one of the worst people to go out on a night out with, because I'm there watching and seeing a fight start before it's even started and letting the bouncers know just by looking at people's body language. But anyway, I kind of boomerang back into events, and I've been working in events ever since. But the biggest story I wanted to really share with people is the hardest decision that I've had to make during that time in events. And that was in my biggest influence and my hardest decision, I've classed it as. My biggest influence in terms of events was my father, Tim. But in late 2014, we realized that he was seriously ill. In 2016, we were told he only had months to live if he didn't have a life-saving transplant operation. And that was a real difficult period for all of the family and for all of the staff that worked for us. I actually took the decision during that time to close the business. I'd done an exercise in back end of 2016, where I looked at how many nights I'd actually spent in my own bed. And I stopped by the end of February because it was so depressing. You know, I just hadn't spent the time at home that I felt I needed to with a growing family. You know, Helen mentioned, I've got 3 daughters who are now teenage daughters. And when I look back on things, you know, when they were younger, they used to keep telling me that I was going away on another holiday every time I left the house. They understand it a bit more now, and sometimes they're quite happy that when I'm away. But at that time, it was really quite difficult, and I just didn't think that we had the balance right. I was running the business by myself because of his ill health, and in 2016, took the decision to close the business and walk away from events. That was the decision. That's had a chat with family, had a chat with friends, and the decision was made for all the right reasons. But it was actually my customers and my peers from the industry. I know, you know, I should have mentioned to begin with how great was Narmeen in terms of how open and honest she was, and she talked about that network of people that you have around you. Well, my network really came to the forefront then, and within an hour of sending the email round to all customers, I'd already had 8 of them on the phone to me saying, no, you can't close the business. You can't walk away from the events industry. We won't do our events next year unless you're involved. Now, that didn't change my decision to close the business. We took that decision. You know, it was the right thing to do. I knew, you know, having grown up with my father, I knew that should he get better, should he, you know, unfortunately, as you see in the last point, in March 2017, we're fortunate he had a life-saving transplant operation and he's still with us today. He misses the industry, but the fact that I closed the business meant that it relieved a lot of that stress that he would have put on himself to jump back into the industry. He lived and breathed it, and we all are guilty of living and breathing our industry, and I'm no different to that. But what I decided to do was take stock of what was important. And whilst I did come back into the industry, and I've been back in the industry since the beginning of 2017, there was no real break. I set up obviously the new business, and the new business offered me the opportunity to get the balance right, spend more time at home now, working with the people and the customers that I want to work with. I think when you're running a business, you can sometimes be in the scenario where you're chasing jobs. And when I talk about chasing jobs, you're sometimes taking jobs that you know you shouldn't really take. It just doesn't fit right. But you're conscious about all the employees that you've got working for you, the overheads, and everything like that. So you found yourself doing so much management time that hadn't been factored into a job's costings purely to get the job and keep the bank manager happy. So that was probably, in terms of my time in events, that's probably been the most difficult decision that I've ever had to make. And it's only through, to be fair, chatting with Helen that I've had the opportunity to reflect on that, because we kind of bounce to the next project. We move on to the next project, and we don't always give ourselves the time to do that. But what about running your own business and the pressures that puts on you? You know, and people who are listening will be at different stages of that journey. Some will have, you know, run multiple businesses. Some will be thinking about running your own business. And I think some of these apply, doesn't matter whether it's in events or whether it's in other sectors. But from my experience, running a business, it isn't a 9 to 5 job, you know, so you've got to consider how you manage your time. You know, some mornings I can be on to a customer in Australia at 3 o'clock UK time and be on at 10 o'clock that evening onto a customer in Las Vegas. How do I manage that day, you know, in terms of to give myself time away from what I'm doing? Because no one in the right mind can sit and work from 3 in the morning right through, you know, till 11, 12 o'clock at night and be as effective as if they were fresh to the start of the day. So you've got to be able to reflect and manage that time accordingly. As I mentioned on the previous slide, the pressure of overheads. You know, we've all got a set of overheads. Even if you're an individual freelancer, you know what your bills are, your mortgage payments, your rent payments, your car payments. You know what figure that you need to make. So if you do the number crunchings, always have that figure in mind. Anything on top of that is a bonus. But if you're able to bring in what you need, the bonus will set you in a better state of mind. But competition for new business exists, and people have been asking me the question, why have I been so positive during the past year? Because I've focused on what I can control. I can only control what's in my circle of control, and all those elements that are outside of that, I have no control over. I can contribute to, I can offer my opinion, which many who know me will always know that I'll offer my opinion. I can be brutally honest at times, but it's really difficult to take the pressure off yourself and just focus on what you can control. Running your own business also involves the people that you employ. Now, I have always considered those that I directly employ and those that are freelancers that are brought into a specific project as just the same, no different. So when March hit, the first calls that I made were to both my freelancers and my employed individuals to say, right, okay, this is what we have to do to get through. It wasn't a case of, you're going to be made redundant. It was literally a collective response in terms of how do we make sure that we get through this process, and keeping those open lines of communication was so really important. Your contacts, the importance of a good phone book. Now, I've done a talk on this and I thought I had a great phone book, a great international phone book prior to March. And how long have I been improved? Yes, I had a good one, but I've gone out there and I've improved that phone book. I've taken it upon myself in terms of my own well-being to explore the opportunities that possibly I never had the time to do previously. Narmeen, I'm going to mention Narmeen's name again. I didn't know Narmeen prior to lockdown. But we've met, we've discussed, we've created a relationship, we've talked quite a lot, both on record and off record. And that goes the same for a number of people who I consider myself fortunate to have got to know better during this period of time, because although we haven't worked together prior to this date, we will definitely be working together as we move forward. And then the last one, and I know I've put an exclamation mark at the end of it, but the need for a good accountant and a bank manager. Now, I'm still working with the same bank manager and the same accountant that I set up with prior to even running this business. When we were still working with TSP Show Business, it's the same accountant, the same bank manager, because they know me, they know my business, they know my values, and they're a sounding board for me. When I've been in difficult scenarios where I've had to make difficult decisions, sometimes my accountant has offered me the best advice. So they're not just delivering a role in terms of giving you financial advice, but they're a sounding board for some very difficult lifelong decisions that you've got to make. And I was on to my accountant this very last week in terms of, right, we're in a situation with this project. I would like to forecast going forward to this. And literally he gave up 10 minutes of his time just to be a sounding board for me. So yeah, I've found ways in which I can use the people around me to be that extended team. And that's why I like to consider people the extended part of my team. So probably a challenge to everyone who's watching and those that are watching later is, are you sure you really want to work in this industry? And the reality check is, you'll be stuck with delays of flights, packing a bag again. As soon as you got home, you feel as though you're packing a bag again to go away again. Meals for one, it's a common occurrence, so don't anyone kid you. Ferry lines, you'll see from that picture the number of times that I've been stuck in a ferry queue to get on to go abroad to deliver a project abroad. Getting filthy, although I'm sure all of us would love to be getting filthy right now in a field delivering an event. And the lack of sleep. Now, Helen mentioned in previous in terms of how important sleep is, and I struggle with it. I have to be honest, I really do struggle with sleep. I've over time, I've got to know what works and what doesn't work. I love listening to podcasts. I quite often fall to sleep listening to podcasts. If I'm not doing that, I will have, when I finish work, I will switch off and watch an hour of binge-worthy TV. Could be absolute rubbish, but just something to have that complete mental switch off from the intensity of delivering my work to the transition into sleep. And I normally have 5 hours sleep maximum. That's just how my body's being built. And, in terms of every probably month, I will crash then for about 10 hours. But generally speaking, if I've slept for 3 or 4 hours and I wake, I struggle to get back to sleep because my brain switches back on again. So find what works for you, but sleep is so, so important. And people make events. And people have heard me say this a number of occasions. If it wasn't for the people that I surround myself with, I would struggle, and that goes for both the customers and the relationships you make with customers and your employees, contractors, peers who you spend much of your time with delivering, as we like to call it, delivering the magic, delivering those experiences that we create and generate for people. And just in those photos alone, I think I'm just looking now, there's about 6 different nationalities of people within this photo that I'm working with on these projects. And there's even a couple of Brummies in there as well, if you want to classify those as a separate identity. I don't think they mind me saying that. But yeah, the people that we work with and the people that we build those relationships with are really important. I've got a WhatsApp group with a couple of event industry peers, and it's an opportunity for us all to just shout out if we're having a bad day, if there's something that someone needs to bounce off. And generally speaking, through March to November, I tended to be the one responding and offering an ear to listen to. And then it came to December, and I actually put in the group and I said, wait for it, this is my first rant. And I actually shared a rant in the group. And because of the relationship that we created, there was some humor generated in terms of some of the responses that I got back, but they were much needed. I just had a bad day. I'd had a really bad day and I needed a sounding board. I needed to offload on someone. And quite often, for all we have, the families that support us, sometimes they don't understand the environment in which we work. So understanding who the best sounding boards are is really important to help you with your own sort of mental well-being and moving forward. So engage in the conversation. As I say, it's a term that I use over and over again. Engage in the conversation. Engage with who's out there. Know who's out there that you can engage with. I've been asked a number of occasions to speak at different things over the past 12 months, and I will always chat and offer my opinion and share my experience, because I think it's good to talk. But how you engage as well is important. Know the right format, know the right platform to do that discussion. Some people need a one-to-one. Some people operate best in groups. There's been some great engagement tools used. Samantha Salisbury, in terms of her group, runs a great group for event professionals that has really had some engaging topics of discussion where the whole group gets involved. And there's many like it out and about. I personally do 3. I've found 3 that work for me. I do a networking group where I help facilitate networking, and it gets me to meet so many people from different industries, and I really enjoy that. I do the LNP forum, which is run by Paul Spicer, and that's every Friday, and I really enjoy that because that's a group of event professionals discussing what's important to us, and I get a lot from that. Even if I'm just there listening, I get a lot from that because I'm part of a network. And then I do another one on a Wednesday called The Same Boat, and that's with a lot of different individuals. And it has been known that I've dressed up on that one on a few occasions to lighten the mood. So there's nothing wrong with me coming on if you see me in a different outfit with a different hat on, or even due to my daughter on occasions with makeup on, just to lighten the mood in terms of getting people smiling and laughing again. But also engage in that support correctly. Don't forget to enjoy what you do. I think I was listening to Dan Asser. Dan's doing some fabulous work today in terms of his 24-hour podcast, and one of his comments was, we could probably earn a better living not working in events, but we do it because we love it. We love the experiences that we create. So make sure you enjoy what you do. If you don't enjoy the specific role that you're doing, find an alternative one. The events industry is so big with so many different careers that you could forge. Try it. If it's not right for you, move on to the next. It's great experience, great transferable skills that you can take into any different forms of employment. And the other one that we are all guilty of, and I don't care who you are, but we are all guilty of it, is embrace feedback. And I don't just mean feedback about the project that you work on, which we're probably more willing to accept, but embrace feedback about you. If someone says something to you, accept it and learn from it and embrace it, because we're not very good at it. And I think if we all got better at it, we would feel better about ourselves. And finally, I was listening last week when our industry colleague Max Fellows put that the comment at the end of his talk out, and he said he's always willing to talk, and I want to replicate that offer. If people ever want to reach out, you know, in terms of there's plenty of links there in ways that you can get in touch with me. And yes, somewhere on there may be a TikTok, but less said about that, the better. But yeah, please, by all means, reach out and chat to me and get in touch if you feel that I can be of help on any occasion. So I will stop sharing the screen. Hopefully Helen may want to join us again. And
yep, I'm back.
Take it from there.
I would love to see you come on a video call all made up with makeup.
It has been known, you know. I did one where it was Jackie's beach hut bar, you know, and the background was a beach bar, and I was there with yeah, let's just say it looked as though I'd had a bad hangover the morning after, but it did its trick. You know, we'd had a really serious topic the week before. I jumped on that following week and everyone was in fits of laughter to start the session, and I think it was just needed. So, you know, it's about not taking ourselves too seriously all the time. You know, I think there's a danger at times that people are in robot mode on occasions, and I think that's a dangerous place to be. So have the time to laugh at yourselves. Yeah,
absolutely. So it's so important, isn't it? That self-humor, to kind of just be a little bit kinder and easier on yourself, kind of stuff. What said, I've just bought my little girl a new book about, and she's 4, a book that we're reading. It's all about being kind to yourself. And there's a statement in there that I just love. And it basically, it's just as simple as, I'm not perfect and I don't have to be. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's all you need to say to yourself. And just have a bit of fun, a bit of humour, joke and happiness, laughter. We were doing a laughter session this morning, weren't you? So laughter is such the best tonic for your mental health. So a couple of questions I'm going to ask you, and anybody else that has any questions, pop them in the Q&A and I'll ask those to Jack for you. So this is one that I wanted to ask you. So mental health of business owners and managers is so often overlooked. There's a conversation we were having with Max last week. So does this stop with managers to start being more open about their mental health and well-being? I mean, what can managers and business owners be doing from that perspective to kind of take their masks off?
Yeah, I think it has a responsibility for everyone, to be honest. You know, whenever I used to, you know, I go back to when I worked within the public sector, you know, I would often go to my manager and ask whether they were all right. You know, we used to have supervisions. I had supervisions with my staff, you know, and I would be asking that anyway before we even started the actual, you know, the actual core content of the main sort of supervision. But I used to do it within my supervisions as well, you know, and I know they were structured supervisions, but I think it's a two-way thing. You know, people have a position to deliver within an organization, but away from delivering that role, they're human beings. You know, so I think it's a collective responsibility to reach out to anyone that you work with or work alongside. You know, I mentioned that before in terms of body language. You know, one of the roles that I used to always take within teams that I manage, I never liked my own office. I always liked to sit on the floor with the team, but I always sat, so I was facing indirectly the team. And I got accustomed to be able to know when someone was walking in the room and their body language was completely different to normal, and picking up on that and just being able to say, do you fancy a coffee? You know, and just being able to walk into a different environment and just approach them and say, you know, is everything all right? I just noticed you know, X, Y, and Z. So I don't think it's always the responsibility of leaving it just with the manager. I think the manager does have to take the time out and reflect. And sometimes that can be easier done from peer to peer. Are you experiencing these issues the same with your team as I am with my team? And I don't doubt that being a strong thing. But there is no harm in if someone who works for you comes up and asks if you're all right, allowing yourself to say, you know what, no, I'm not having a good day, you know, because that doesn't impact on your ability to deliver your role. It actually opens up the fact that, you know what, today I need to concentrate on X, Y, and Z, and I can't take on A, B, and C as well. And there's that realization in terms of we've all got those needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Comes back to what I was saying with NAMI and what we were talking about there, isn't it? We all have a collective responsibility. So you'd be amazed at the difference that can be made to an organisation or a team if we all take a personal responsibility to look after our own mental health. And so you can completely change culture of an organization, culture of a project, culture of a team, just by making that collective, everybody having that responsibility, can't you? It can make a massive difference. And Jack, he picks up, he's not lying when he talks about his ability to be able to pick up on someone's body language, facial expressions, because that tends to be how Jack kind of checks in on me. You're okay? I just picked up that you might not be doing so well this week.
even the change in the way that they write an email.
Yeah.
You know, you can sometimes even pick up on that. You know, if someone has lost the humorous, engaging side of an email, and it's literally so military written that you just think, that's not the same. Now, sometimes that can be because there's a task that needs to be completed, you know, and it's a get your ass in gear and get this task done. But sometimes if you're picking up on it carefully, it's a change in behavior, and just noticing those subtle changes in behavior are important, because if you can tackle them early, if you can offer that support early, it doesn't become a bigger issue for either them or even your own project. So you're actually not just looking after the individual there, you're actually looking after the health and well-being of the whole project that you're working on. So yeah, try and watch out and see whether you can pick up yourself in terms of any changes that you see in the people that you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. Self-awareness is really important. And we say this about mental health as well. One of the biggest signs for anything related to poor mental health, so stress, anxiety, depression, but it's all linked to behaviors. So if you go and see your doctor, they'll ask and talk to you about behaviors. There's no blood tests for any of this. There's no can't give you a brain scan and say that, oh, no, the left lobe of your brain indicates that you might have a little bit of bipolar in there. It doesn't work that way. So it's all diagnosed by behavioral changes, reactions to things. So that's one of the biggest things you can do to help yourself and to help others, is kind of watch for those behavioral kind of reactions, how people are reacting to certain things. It could indicate that they're struggling, and that's when you can reach out to someone and say, do you need some help? So that's great. Jack, someone said, thank you, Jack, your journey is inspiring, and proves we can still do what we do with some tweaking to create a more balanced life. And with that, I wanted to ask you a question as well, because we mentioned about events isn't 9 to 5. I think we all know it's not 9 to 5 at all, and constantly being expected to work a 9 to 5 life, which we've not been doing over the last 12 months. We've all been working from home, which has its positives, but also has its negatives as well. So any tips to give people in terms of that switch off, work from home advice, particularly for managers and stuff as well, not just for everybody, you know, managers and team members, that switch off?
It's a difficult one, isn't it? It's a real difficult one, especially when you're all in one environment, you know, and people will either, you know, I feel mostly for the people who are isolated by themselves. You know, by themselves at the minute is a real difficult time. You know, my father is, you know, he's self-isolating, he's on that critical list and he's by himself. And, you know, he's done remarkably well during that time, but being able to reach out from a social aspect to those individuals. But if we look at myself, you know, I'm in a house here with 4 women, my wife and my 3 teenage daughters. So I never win an argument at home. As much as
never will.
As much as I like to think I win the odd one, I'm sure I never do. And sometimes, you know, through this period, they've coped far better than I have. You know, there's been occasions where I've gone into my office and they've locked the door and locked me in because they need the time out from me. You know, so give yourself something to focus on, I think, has been really important. And that's not just work. You know, so during this time, we've built a garden room. You know, we just set it upon ourselves to give the kids some more space when they are able to get back and have friends around and everything. So we've had a project going in the background that I could dip into now and again when I needed the time out, and it still felt as though I was being productive. You know, and that's because it's practical and it's something that I could engage with. Other people know, you know, what works for you. You know, some people, it could be reading a book. I can be honest and say I hate reading, you know, and people think, what? Well, I'm a visual learner. You know, that's how I learn. And, you know, reading a book, I can't do it, but I love listening to books. And I love listening to audiobooks. And as I say, podcasts have been great for me. So for me, just having that ability to switch off. And I love hearing about other people's stories. And that's probably where the podcast eventually came from, because I love listening to my peers. as they talk through their own journeys, as they talk through the experiences of the events that they've worked on. Because what I'm doing when I'm listening is I'm actually putting myself in their shoes and thinking, yeah, this is really why I love events. You know, I'm getting the energy off them just from listening to them. So find what works for you, and if it works, make sure you fit it into your diary. Make sure you put, you know, going out for that walk. If that's what you need, timetable it. Get out for that walk. If someone asks for a meeting, say no, unfortunately I can't. That is set in stone in my diary, and it's something that I have in my diary. So it is about being hard, both on yourself and on your schedules, to make sure that you have that time out.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So important. And we're going to end on this last question, which ties into this as well. And I think this is a really, really great question for us to finish off, because now we're on project roadmap, or whatever name we want to give it, roadmap back to events. This is when we're going to be more analogies and stuff for the industry, as if we didn't have enough already, from pivoting to roadmaps. So when events come back and deadlines and time become critical again, what advice can you give for us to find that time to keep an eye on those around us? But I'm also going to add in there, but also to keep an eye on ourselves as well.
Easiest answer: surround yourself with the right people. Surround yourself with the right people who you enjoy working with, who you know can do the job, who you don't have to be supervising 24/7. And that doesn't mean individuals who are just entering the market don't need the support. It does. And I love offering that support. I love seeing people develop. You know, that would be something that I would enjoy doing. But by having those right individuals around you that can allow you that time to take a step back, I think really is critical. And if the right people are around you, look for those that are the right people. You know, there are plenty of event professionals in this industry that we have the opportunity to work with moving forward, even if you haven't worked with them before. So reach out to them, surround yourself with them, and let's enjoy delivering events again. And I don't mean we haven't been delivering events, because we've been delivering them in a different way at the minute.
Yep.
And, you know, it gets into the debate in terms of what is the right event in terms of virtual, hybrid, live. Well, there's a big debate in terms of whether virtual events are live, because quite often they are live. You know, we're live now. So it's about finding what the best experience that you can offer to your customers, clients, service users, and generating that experience again. You know, whether it be a bit of both, whether it be purely in person, it doesn't matter. Your responsibility as an event professional is about finding which is the best solution to what your client's needs is. And if you can do that and you can enjoy doing it, you can make a living, you can enjoy what you do, and you can move forward in this event industry.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to echo something that we covered in last week's EventWell talks as well. And it's applies to everybody throughout an organisation, that if you are in a situation at work where you cannot step away from it for 24 hours because you're having a bad day or because you're struggling, then something's wrong, and you need to seriously have a look at that what you're doing and your workload and pressures and stuff like that as well. So Jack, awesome. Thank you so much. Again, some great insights and takeaways for people to learn so much from this session. Again, not just the people who have joined us here today, but also people who are going to be watching this on demand afterwards. So thank you so much, as always.
Never a problem. You know that. Always here to support you and other peers. So never a problem to pick up the phone.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Jack. Round of applause for Jack. And that's it. That's the end of this session. And we'll see. Hope you guys are going to come back and join us at 1 o'clock for the Science of Happiness with Casey Evans.